At the city hall, after waiting for 3 long hours, I tiredly sent a text, "Daniel, let's break up." As I walked out of the building, I ran right into my boss, Alexander Hayes. "Mr. Hayes, are you getting married today too? Maya, would you like to marry me?" I thought of the text Daniel had just sent me. "Maya, stop messing around. Lily is really sick. Be good. We can talk about getting our license in a couple of days." I smiled at Alexander and said, "Alright." Today was the day my fiancé, Daniel, and I were supposed to get our marriage license. After waiting for him at the city hall for 3 hours, I finally got through on his phone, but the person who answered was his old flame. "Lily, where's Daniel? He's cooking for me. Is there something you need, Miss Song?" Cooking. A cold, sarcastic laugh escaped my lips. Daniel and I had been together for 2 years, and I never even knew he could cook. Just then, I heard Daniel's voice on the other end. "Maya, Lily almost fainted today, and her family isn't around. I'm just looking after her." I scoffed. She could have fainted any other day, but of course, she faints on the day we're supposed to get married. Perfect timing. I gripped my phone tighter. "Daniel, I'll only ask you this once. Are you still coming to get the license with me today?" "Maya, I can't leave right now. What's the big deal about waiting a couple of days?" Daniel's tone was impatient. I was about to speak when I heard Lily's faint cry from the other end. "Ouch, it's hot." The line went dead. I didn't need to see it to picture the scene. Daniel, his eyes filled with concern, comforting his precious old flame. Ever since Lily had returned, all it took was for her to look slightly teary, eyed in front of him, and he would look like his heart was breaking. I had never received that kind of treatment. In Daniel's eyes, I was supposed to be the understanding and sensible one. He never realized that I was a woman too, that sometimes I needed his care. My heart clenched, but it didn't hurt as much as I expected. Listening to the dial tone, I took a deep breath, a mocking smile on my lips, and tiredly sent a text, "Daniel, let's break up." Enough. If Daniel wanted to go comfort his old flame, then I would let him. As I walked out of the city hall, I saw Alexander Hayes, my boss and the CEO of Hayes Corporation, standing by the entrance. I was momentarily stunned. As his secretary, I was surprised I didn't know this was on his schedule. "Mr. Hayes, are you getting married today too?" Alexander's dark eyes swept over me, and he gave a faint, "Well, congratulations." I wanted to ask why he was getting married alone, but I remembered that as a secretary, I shouldn't pry into my boss's private life, so I swallowed the words. Alexander smiled faintly. "Maya, would you like to marry me?" "Huh," I replied. What a coincidence. Had he been stood up too? Alexander's voice was low and calm. "Well, we're both here alone. We could just get married." I thought of the text Daniel had just sent me. "Maya, stop messing around. Lily is really sick. Be good. We can talk about getting our license in a couple of days." I smiled at Alexander and said, "Alright." Less than 10 minutes later, I had a brand new marriage certificate in my hand. Looking at our photo on the certificate, I suddenly felt a wave of impulsiveness. "What? Regretting it already?" Alexander asked coolly. I pursed my lips and asked in return, "Sir, are you doing this out of spite for Miss Evans?" As his secretary, I knew a little about my boss's private affairs. I had even helped him pick out gifts for a Miss Evans, although I had never met her. A woman who could capture Alexander's attention must be special. Alexander looked at me, his voice very soft. "She doesn't have that kind of power over me. You'll understand in time, Maya." Oh. I generally deferred to my boss's words. After all, he was the one who paid my salary, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a hint of melancholy in his eyes just now, which didn't quite fit his domineering CEO persona. After parting ways with Alexander, I went back to my small apartment. When I was with Daniel, we never fully lived together, so I had bought this place for myself. The first thing I did when I got home was delete and block Daniel from all my contacts. From now on, we would go our separate ways. Wait. I suddenly remembered that my separate way now included Alexander. He said he would give me a week to adjust, and then I would have to move in with him. The thought of being with him almost 247, boss by day, and at night, I suddenly felt a little lost. I still didn't know why Alexander had proposed getting married. Was he also just angry with Miss Evans? I had only been his secretary for a month. We hardly knew each other, and I had actually agreed. Thinking of Alexander's face, I wondered if I had been swayed by his good looks. As my mind wandered, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, Maya Song. Did you block me?" Daniel's voice came through, seething. I could imagine the dark look on his face. He was always like that. The slightest bit of temper from me, And he would think I was being dramatic and his expression would immediately sour. I don't know how he could stand Lily being dramatic in front of him all the time and not see it. Before yesterday, I would have placated him, coaxed him, but now, yes, I did. We broke up. Why wouldn't I block you? My sarcastic tone seemed to anger him even more. Can you stop being so unreasonable? If you want to get the license, we can go again tomorrow. I laughed out of sheer frustration. Daniel, you're not the only man in the world. You've missed your chance. With that, I hung up and blocked the new number. It was a smooth, satisfying motion. The next day, I went downstairs to go to work. As I was leaving my building, a car pulled up beside me, a familiar car. It was Daniel's. He got out and walked up to me. His first words an accusation. Maya Song, are you done with your drama? Can you be a little more mature? Blocking people is childish. I rolled my eyes, exasperated. Mr. Vance, have you lost your memory? We've already broken up. Daniel looked at me intently, as if just now realizing I wasn't joking. Lily was really sick yesterday. I was just taking care of her. If you're angry about that, then I apologize. Even his apology was half-hearted. I don't know how I put up with it for 2 years. I sighed softly, feeling a pang of pity for my past self. I looked up at him. Daniel, we both know what your relationship with Lily is. As your ex-girlfriend, let me give you a piece of friendly advice. Be a better judge of character. Now, move. Maya Song, what's that supposed to mean? What has Lily ever done to you? She's just a good friend. Of course, she was the one he cherished. I wasn't allowed to say a single bad word about her. I shrugged indifferently, pushed past him, and raised my hand to hail a taxi. At that moment, a black Bentley pulled up beside me. The driver got out, walked quickly over to me, and said respectfully, Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Hayes has a meeting today, so he asked me to pick you up for work. I was stunned for a few seconds before I realized that the Mr. Hayes he was referring to was Alexander. This must be a side effect of a whirlwind marriage. I had almost forgotten I married him yesterday. Before I could say anything, Daniel, looking shocked, asked the driver, what did you just call her? The driver glanced at him. This is my employer's wife. Of course, I call her Mrs. Hayes. Daniel's disbelief grew. Maya Song, when did you get married? Yesterday. I uttered the single word lightly, then got into the car without another glance at him. This news must have been a blow to Daniel. He had always thought he had me wrapped around his finger, that I couldn't live without him. Even when he ditched me on dates time and time again for Lily, I had always forgiven him in the end, but not this time. Back at the office, I quickly got into work mode, organizing the documents from various departments that needed Alexander's approval and then taking them to his executive assistant, David. David didn't take the files. Instead, he smiled and said, Maya, from now on, you'll deliver the documents to him personally. But, I was hesitant. When I was first promoted to be the CEO's secretary, David had given me a long list of rules, one of which was that I was not to enter Alexander's office without permission. David explained, the CEO has given instructions. From now on, you may enter and leave his office as you please. His tone was slightly suggestive. I guessed he already knew about the marriage. All right then. I reluctantly took the files, knocked, and entered. I still wasn't sure how to face Alexander, boss turned husband. It was a bit awkward. Behind the massive desk, Alexander was engrossed in a document. I quickly placed the files on his desk, intending to slip out quietly. Maya, the man's usual cool voice came from behind me. I took a deep breath, put on a professional smile, and turned around. Sir, the documents are on your desk. Is there anything else? Alexander put down his pen, leaned back in his chair, and looked at me with his arms crossed and a half-smile on his face. I touched my face. I had put on light makeup this morning, had it smudged. After a long moment, Alexander said slowly, have you had breakfast? I reacted quickly. Sir, would you like me to get you breakfast? I'll go right now. David had asked me to order breakfast for him a few times before. Alexander's lips curved into a teasing smile. You really are a good employee, Maya. I suppose so. Otherwise, why would a CEO suddenly promote a newcomer to be his secretary? I wasn't being modest. I couldn't think of any other reason. I had originally applied for a position in the design department but was offered the job of CEO's secretary instead. If it hadn't been for the doubled salary, I wouldn't have taken it. At my words, a flicker of something passed through Alexander's eyes. He pointed to the coffee table. There's breakfast over there. Eat it. I froze, looking at him in confusion, not understanding what he meant. Alexander patiently repeated, You have stomach problems because you don't eat on time, especially breakfast. That breakfast is for you. Eat something. My boss brought me breakfast. I had a bad feeling about this. And how did he know I had stomach problems? As I thought it, I said it. Sir, how do you know I have stomach problems? And how do you know I skip breakfast? Alexander said nonchalantly. You're my secretary. Shouldn't I know these things about you? He paused, then looked at me again. Maya, have you forgotten that you're not just my employee now, but also the person on my marriage certificate? I'd rather not be a widower right after getting married. His words sounded cold, but they made my heart clench, and a warmth spread through my eyes. Daniel and I were together for 2 years, and he never once noticed my stomach issues, let alone reminded me to eat on time. I remember once, my stomach was hurting so badly. I called him and asked him to buy me some medicine. His reply was a single sentence. Just order it on an app. I'm in a hurry right now. He hung up without waiting for my response. Later, I found out from a friend of his that his emergency that day was picking up Lily from the airport. I knew that with Daniel, I would always come second to Lily. Perhaps he had only gotten with me in the first place because Lily hadn't come back yet. I was just a substitute. Maya, the man's pleasant, cool scent filled my nostrils. I snapped back to reality and saw Alexander's handsome face magnified before me. My heart began to race. Sir, is there something you need? His sudden appearance had dissipated the heavy feelings from a moment ago. Alexander tapped my forehead lightly. What are you daydreaming about? Hurry up and eat your breakfast. The small gesture made my cheeks flush. I instinctively glanced at the door, worried someone might see. Even though I was married to him, I didn't want anyone at the company to know. I could already imagine the gossip. Seeing my cautiousness, Alexander frowned. Don't worry, not just anyone can walk into my office. Oh. I quickly walked over to the coffee table and picked up the breakfast. I'll just take this back to my desk. You're going to take breakfast out of my office. Aren't you afraid people will get the wrong idea? I paused. He had a point. I silently sat down on the sofa nearby and said with a sheepish smile, I'll just eat it here then. Alexander seemed satisfied and returned to his desk to continue working. The office was so quiet that I was afraid to chew too loudly, for fear of disturbing the peace. I had to admit, the breakfast he had prepared was exactly to my taste. He seemed to be a very thoughtful person. I instinctively looked up at the man behind the desk, noble and refined, devastatingly handsome. I often saw some of the female colleagues at the office fawning over him. Before, I only saw him as my boss and didn't think much of it, but looking at him seriously now, he really was quite attractive. And unbelievably, I had married him. Perhaps sensing my gaze, Alexander looked up. I quickly looked away, finished the last bite of my breakfast, and stood up. Sir, I'm finished. I'll get back to work. As I reached the door, the man's gentle voice came from behind me. My dear wife, let's have dinner together tonight. I didn't say yes or no, just hurried out. That, my dear wife, was a bit too much for me to handle. Before, with Daniel, I was always the one chasing him. To suddenly be treated like this, especially by my boss, was something I wasn't used to. Soon, it was the end of the workday. I finished my tasks by 7. I glanced at the still lit CEO's office. I wondered when he would be done. Had he forgotten about dinner? It would be fine if he had. I wasn't sure my heart could take being around that face for an extended period of time. Just as I was thinking, a message popped up on my phone. Alexander, meet me in the parking garage. I sighed softly and resignedly went to the garage. Maya, are you waiting for someone? As I stood by the elevator bank, I ran into Mark, the marketing manager. I nodded. Yes. Mark's eyes were fixed on me. Maya, when are you free? We should have dinner sometime. I frowned. Ever since I joined the company, Mark had been asking me out. I had refused him multiple times, but he was persistent. I knew what he was after. I was about to refuse again when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Alexander. I quickly answered. Hello, exit B. Okay, I'm on my way. I hung up, said a quick goodbye to Mark, and hurried towards exit B. I saw the Bentley from this morning and instinctively opened the back door. The driver's seat was occupied by Alexander, who said coolly, Does my secretary really think I'm her chauffeur? It's a habit. I gave a sheepish laugh and got into the passenger seat. Alexander glanced at me. You're quite popular, aren't you, Maya? Why the sarcastic tone? It took me a moment to realize he must have seen me talking to Mark. Could it be? Alexander Hayes, you're not jealous, are you? Realizing this, I suddenly felt bolder and used his full name. Alexander scoffed but didn't answer, just started the car. but I had clearly seen him stiffen for a moment. The kind of awkwardness that comes from being caught. This man had feelings for me. We went to a 5-star Western restaurant for dinner. Life with a tycoon was certainly good. While waiting for our food, I went to the restroom. When I came out, I saw Alexander on the phone in the corridor. He was just hanging up. I was about to walk over when I saw a familiar figure bump into him. It looked like an accident, but wasn't that woman Lily? I'm so sorry, so sorry. Lily apologized profusely to Alexander, her voice sickeningly sweet. Alexander took a large step back and glanced at her. Lily looked even more timid. Hello, sir, can I have your number? Alexander replied flatly with a single word. No. Then he strode away. Lily stomped her foot in frustration. I watched the scene with a cold smile. She had clearly been trying to hit on Alexander. I wonder what Daniel would think if he knew. After all, Lily was his pure and innocent old flame. When I returned to the table, the food had already arrived. I was surprised. Alexander had ordered all my favorite dishes. He seemed to know me very well. We were halfway through our meal when a familiar voice interrupted. Miss Song, what are you doing here? I didn't need to look up to know it was Lily. It was followed by Daniel's furious voice. Maya Song, is this why you wanted to break up with me? Because you found another man? I had intended to ignore them, but their accusations were so ridiculous I couldn't help but retort. Where I am and what I'm doing is none of your business. Lily looked hurt. But this is a 5-star restaurant for couples. You and another man. I wasn't going to put up with her act. What? Do you own this restaurant? Do you think I can't afford it? Or that I can't come here with another man? Hearing me speak to his precious Lily that way, Daniel's face darkened. Maya Song, you're the one in the wrong here. Why are you being so aggressive? Who is this man? Why are you with him? You are not worthy of knowing who I am. A cool, indifferent voice spoke. Alexander, who had had his back to them, slowly turned around, his cold gaze sweeping over them. Seeing him, Lily froze, the triumphant look on her face slowly turning to jealousy. The man she had just tried to pick up was here. Daniel was clearly taken aback by Alexander's cold demeanor. I walked over and linked my arm through Alexander's, smiling sweetly. Let me introduce you. This is my husband, Alexander Hayes. What? Isn't Alexander Hayes your boss? Daniel was shocked. He had thought the man looked familiar. The CEO of Hayes Corporation. He had seen him from a distance at a banquet once. I then remembered that when I was promoted to be Alexander's secretary, I had mentioned it to Daniel. At the time, he had just said dismissively, a man of his status probably just recognizes your abilities. In his eyes, I had no capital to attract a man like Alexander. He had forgotten that I was once considered one of the top 3 most beautiful girls in our university. Alexander looked down at me and said coolly, I am Maya's boss, but now I am also her husband, Mr. Vance. Since you know who I am, you should not be bothering my wife. He didn't even spare Daniel a glance. Though Daniel was from a wealthy family, he was no match for Alexander. He seethed, only able to glare at me. Lily clenched her fists. Weren't you supposed to be getting your license with Daniel yesterday? How did you end up married to Mr. Hayes? She still couldn't believe I could be so lucky. I said coldly, I have you to thank for that. If you hadn't been clinging to Daniel yesterday, I might have missed out on Alexander. I paused, raising an eyebrow. But Lily, you seem to be quite interested in all the men in my life. I took out my phone, tapped a few times, and held it out to Daniel. Daniel, take a look at the pure and innocent girl you hold so dear. I hadn't wanted to go this far, but Lily had provoked me. The video was of her trying to hit on Alexander, which I had recorded. Lily leaned in to look, her eyes widening. Daniel, I was just. Daniel wasn't a fool. He knew exactly what Lily had been trying to do, but whether to protect his own pride or because he chose to believe her, he looked at me with a dark expression. Maya Song, I know what kind of person Lily is. Do you think a video like this proves anything? Look at you. You were my fiancé, and you turn around and marry someone else. You were probably already involved with your boss and just pretended to break up with me. Listen to him. Everything was my fault. In his mind, I had cheated on him. How utterly ridiculous. I must have been out of my mind to have ever liked him. Hearing Daniel's words, Lily breathed a sigh of relief, a flicker of triumph in her eyes. She knew Daniel would always take her side. I said mockingly, Daniel, you can think whatever you want. I've let you and Lily be together, and I'm married now. Let's just go our separate ways. If we see each other again, let's pretend we don't know each other. Daniel was about to speak when Alexander cut him off coldly. Mr. Vance, before we got our license yesterday, Maya and I had a purely professional relationship. Though we don't need to explain anything to you. I will not tolerate anyone slandering my wife." With that, he picked up my bag and took my hand. "Let's go." I let him lead me out of the restaurant. It had been a long time since anyone had defended me like that. In that moment, my weary heart found a sliver of peace, and a flicker of something more. A week passed in a flash. I slowly got used to my relationship with Alexander. Though he didn't give me any special treatment at work, I had to admit, he was a good husband in our personal lives, very attentive, very thoughtful. I suddenly felt quite lucky. I had been stood up at the city hall, only to end up married to Alexander. I still couldn't figure out if he had also been stood up that day and married me on a whim. I asked him once, but he just smiled and said the time wasn't right to tell me. I didn't ask again. As per our agreement, I moved into his villa, but he had already left for a business trip when I moved in, which saved us the awkwardness of starting to live together. Though he was away, he still texted me every day to remind me to eat on time. My stomach problems hadn't flared up once. Today, after work, I went back to my small apartment to pack a few more things. As I was leaving, a gust of autumn wind blew, a little chilly. I was walking to the corner to hail a cab when a dark figure appeared behind me, getting closer and closer. I started to walk faster, but a hand grabbed me. I screamed, "Ah, Maya, it's me," Daniel's voice said. I looked up, my heart still pounding. It was him. "Daniel, what are you doing here? I've been waiting for you for days. I finally caught you." He looked at me, the strong smell of alcohol on his breath. I frowned and tried to pull my hand away. "We've broken up. Why are you waiting for me?" "Maya, you were right. Lily deceived me. She just wanted to find a richer man." It seems the video had planted a seed of doubt after all. He must have investigated her. I raised an eyebrow. "Congratulations on finally seeing her for who she is. But what does that have to do with me?" Daniel looked crestfallen. "I'm sorry, Maya, can we not break up?" His words made me laugh. So, his old flame had disappointed him, and now he remembered how good I was. "Daniel, I'm married, and even if I weren't, there's no chance for us. Ask yourself, in these 2 years, did you really like me, or were you just using me as a substitute for Lily?" I suddenly remembered a time when Daniel was drunk and kept calling out, "Maya." Thinking back, he was probably calling out, "Lily." In his heart, there had only ever been her. I had been too foolish. Moved by his drunken calls, Daniel was silent for a moment, then gripped my hand again. "Maya, I've thought about it. I like you. I just didn't realize until now that I had fallen for you." "So what?" His sudden confession left me cold. "Just because you say you like me, I have to like you back. Please, don't come looking for me again. I don't want my husband to get the wrong idea." At my words, his eyes turned terrifyingly red, and his grip on my hand tightened. I struggled to break free but couldn't. A wave of fear washed over me. "Daniel, let go." Suddenly, a fist flew out, and Daniel stumbled back, nearly falling. It was Alexander. Seeing him, my heart instantly settled. Alexander's eyes narrowed as he looked at Daniel. "Daniel, I warned you not to bother my wife again." Daniel wiped a trickle of blood from his lip. The alcohol seemed to have given him some courage. "Maya was my fiancée. You're the one who interfered." I looked at him, amused, and said without a shred of pity, "Daniel, playing the devoted lover now. Isn't it a bit ridiculous? I'm married to Alexander now. I'm his wife. You should just go about your business and stay out of our lives." With that, I took Alexander's arm and walked away, leaving Daniel standing there, stunned. In the car, I hesitated for a moment, then said, "I was just getting some things." I don't know why Daniel was there, whether Alexander would misunderstand or not. I felt I should explain, just to avoid any unnecessary trouble. He gave a low, "I know. As long as you're okay." His simple words warmed my heart. He had come looking for me the moment he got back from his trip. This was what it felt like to be cared for. "Alexander, yes, can I hug you?" Before he could answer, I leaned over and hugged him tightly. In that moment, he was my husband, not my boss. I could feel his body stiffen for a moment before he wrapped his arms around me. He said in a low voice, "Maya Song, I'm here for you now." His tone was certain, with a hint of something like fulfillment. No man had ever said that to me before. I could hear my own heart pounding like a drum. If I didn't know better, I would have thought Alexander Hayes had been in love with me for a long time. On the weekend, I was at home, planning to paint. I had studied design in college, but it had been a long time since I had picked up a brush. I called Alexander to ask if I could use his study. "Alexander, I want to paint. Can I use your study?" He seemed to hesitate on the phone, then said, "The room next to my study." You can use that one. Okay, by the way, when are you coming back? Soon. Would you like some dessert? I can bring some for you. I was taken aback, then smiled. If it's not too much trouble, that would be great. I did have a sweet tooth, but I was surprised he had noticed. After hanging up, I took my art supplies to the room he had mentioned. I had been living here for about half a month but had never been in this room. When I opened the door, I was stunned. It was an art studio, filled with art supplies, all of them unopened. Did Alexander also like to paint? As his secretary, I knew his basic information by heart, but painting was not listed as one of his hobbies. But the studio was very comfortable, and I quickly became engrossed in my painting. I don't know how much time had passed, but the door opened, and Alexander walked in with a dessert box and a bouquet of yellow roses. Finished. I put down my brush and stood up. Yes, I haven't painted in a long time, so I'm a bit rusty. He looked at my painting carefully and smiled faintly. Not bad. You haven't lost your touch. My attention was drawn to the things in his hands, and I didn't pay much attention to his words. Are those flowers for me? Of course, they're for my dear wife. All girls like flowers. He handed me the flowers and placed the dessert on a table. Opening it, you can have some of this. Dinner will be ready soon. I held the bouquet, the rich fragrance filling the air, and a smile unconsciously formed on my lips. Thank you. This must be what it felt like to be cherished. The dessert was an exquisite strawberry cake, my favorite flavor. Alexander, I've discovered you're a boss who knows his employees very well. He looked at me and smirked. I only know you. My cheeks flushed. I quickly changed the subject. Why is there an art studio in the house? Do you paint too? He raised an eyebrow slightly. I don't paint. Then this. It's for you, he said, cutting me off. I pressed my lips together. If I didn't realize something was up by now, I would be truly dense. I looked up at him. How did you know I could paint? I was sure I hadn't written it on my resume. He said calmly. You originally applied for the design department. Anyone who studies design can paint to some extent. This studio is clearly set up for oil painting. How did you know I like to paint with oils? I looked at him directly, trying to read his expression, but he was perfectly composed, with no trace of guilt. He just smiled faintly. Wait a little longer. I'll tell you then. He paused, then said, Maya, next week is the university's anniversary. Please add it to my schedule. With that, he left the studio. It took me a moment to realize. Was Alexander also an alumnus of my university? But a man like him would have been a campus celebrity. How had I never heard of him? A few days later was the university's anniversary. I hadn't planned on going, but since Alexander was invited, I went with him as his secretary. I later learned that the Hayes Corporation donated a significant amount of money to the university every year, which was why he was a special guest. I hadn't been back since I graduated. While Alexander was talking with the university president, I wandered around the campus. Of all the people to run into, it had to be Lily, but she was also an alumna, so it wasn't surprising to see her here. I looked away, intending to ignore her and take another route, but she saw me and immediately came over, her usual delicate demeanor replaced with an arrogant shout. Maya Song, did you say something to Daniel? He's been ignoring me lately. I frowned. So Daniel's attempt at a reconciliation had been genuine. He had really dumped Lily. I smirked. You know what you did behind his back. Daniel is not a fool. Lily gritted her teeth. It's all your fault. If you hadn't shown him that video, he never would have suspected me. Maya Song, you're just getting revenge. Lily, Daniel is a man I didn't want. Why would I waste my time getting revenge on you too? Don't think so highly of yourself. Lily's arrogant face twisted with rage. Then, as if remembering something, she sneered. So you just latched onto a rich man. Do you really think a man like Alexander Hayes is serious about you? He's just playing with you. And how would you know I'm not serious about my wife? A cold, deep voice spoke. Alexander walked over, put his arm around my waist, and looked at Lily coldly, enunciating each word. The only person I have ever loved in my life is my wife. His words stunned both of us. Lily's expression froze, her heart shattering, her eyes filled with jealousy. Even if she tried to use her tricks to seduce him now, it was unlikely to work. And in Alexander's words, I seemed to finally understand something I had been overlooking. Alexander, have we met before? He chuckled, not answering directly. Let me take you somewhere. Under Lily's resentful gaze, Alexander and I walked away, our hands intertwined. He took me to the university's art studio. I knew this place well. I had spent all my free time here during my 4 years of college. I looked up at him. How do you know this place? Were you really a student here? He nodded. But I was only here for half a year before I went abroad. I understood. no wonder I never heard of you. A man like you would have been the talk of the campus. He chuckled. What kind of man am I? I searched my mind for the right words. Handsome, noble, like a god from the heavens. So that's how my dear wife sees me. He looked down at me, his gaze hot, and said softly, 6 years ago, I met an even more radiant girl right here. My mind flashed. I asked, stunned, that girl wasn't me, was it? But I was sure I had never seen him before. He didn't answer, seeming to be lost in his own memories. That day, I happened to be passing by the art studio. I looked in through the window and saw a girl in a white dress with a high ponytail, completely absorbed in her painting. The sunlight streaming through the window cast a halo around her. It was beautiful. That's when I knew a girl like that existed at this school. The second time I saw her was at the freshman welcome party. She played a piano piece. It was beautiful. That's when I learned her name was Maya Song. I was actually a campus celebrity back then. After the party, a lot of freshmen were trying to get to know me, but she didn't seem to see me at all. Later, I would often take a detour past the art studio. I saw her many times. She was always lost in her own world, as if the outside world didn't exist. By now, my eyes were red, my voice choked. And then what? You went abroad. He came back to the present, looking at me deeply. Yes, my plan was always to go abroad, but meeting you was not part of the plan. I never thought that even after I left, your image would stay with me, for 5 whole years. His words grabbed my heart like a vice. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision. I knew I was pretty. I had been praised for it my whole life and had received many love letters, but for someone to hold on to a crush for 5 years, I had never imagined, never dared to imagine such a thing. I looked up at him. Why did you never come and find me? He gently wiped a tear from the corner of my eye, his voice a little hoarse. When I came back, you were already with Daniel. I could only keep my feelings hidden, but I never expected you to apply for a job at Hayes Corporation. Perhaps it was fate giving me a chance. I sniffled. So you deliberately made me your secretary. And here I thought I was promoted because of my abilities. Promoting you was my selfish desire, but you were also qualified for the job, he said, playfully tapping my nose. Do you think your resume would have even reached my desk if HR hadn't approved it? Then, I pursed my lips. That day at the city hall, who were you supposed to be marrying? If he had been thinking about me all this time, why would he have agreed to marry another woman? He laughed. My dear wife, don't you understand yet? How could I have married another woman before you? The moment he had fallen for me, it was already too late for anyone else. I stood there, stunned, for a long moment before it finally sank in. My heart began to race. I asked in a trembling voice, you were there for me that day. His eyes were burning. I didn't think Daniel was good enough for you. I was originally going to stop you from marrying him. I never expected him to stand you up. So, it all seemed like a coincidence, but it was his long, cherished plan. A seemingly heartless man had harbored a deep love for a girl he once knew, a love that had grown stronger over the years, like a fine-aged wine. I stood on my toes, wrapped my arms around his neck, and pressed a kiss to his thin lips. Alexander, thank you for not giving up on me. Before, I had thought Daniel liked me, at least before Lily came back. He had been very good to me. Now, with the contrast, I realized that his kindness was only because I bore a slight resemblance to her. I had been hung up on him, blind to the gaze that had been following me from the shadows. Thinking back, I was so incredibly foolish, but thankfully, Alexander hadn't given up. He wiped my tears and, looking down, kissed my eyelids, my eyebrows, with the utmost tenderness. Maya Song, I finally married my girl. He took my hand, his long fingers lacing through mine. He led me out of the art studio. The autumn sun shone on us, stretching our shadows long behind us. That evening, back at home, Alexander went to his study. I took a shower, replied to a few messages, and then scrolled through my social media. I was surprised to see that Alexander had posted something, a rare occurrence. It was a photo of my back, taken at the university today. The caption read, "A dream come true." Curious, I clicked on his profile and was shocked to find that he had posted before, but he had hidden them from me. I scrolled to his first post. It was a photo of my back in the art studio. The caption, "She seems to love painting." The second post was a photo of my back as I was watching a basketball game. The caption, "Is there someone she likes on the court?" My hand, holding the phone, began to tremble. I quickly scrolled through every post. There was a 5-year gap. Then, 2 years ago, another photo of my back. The caption, 5 years. I finally saw her again. But, she's with someone else. She seems to really like him. I scrolled through a few more, then saw the post from our wedding day. I finally married my girl. From then on, all his posts were about my daily life, and I had never even noticed. My vision blurred, and tears streamed down my face. A sour, tight feeling filled my chest, making it hard to breathe. So all these years, he had been watching me from the shadows, from a place where I couldn't see. When he saw I was with someone else, he didn't even dare to disturb me. But he was Alexander Hayes, the CEO of Hayes Corporation. He was supposed to be the one shining, the one everyone admired. For me, he had been so timid. I stood up and ran to the study. When I threw the door open, Alexander looked up. Seeing my tear-streaked face, he immediately got up and strode towards me. I rushed into his arms and held him tight. He held me back and asked in a hoarse voice, "Why are you crying?" My voice was still choked with sobs. "Alexander, why were you so foolish? Why didn't you tell me? What would you have done if I had really married Daniel that day?" He knew I had seen his posts. He patted my back and said softly, "As long as you were happy, nothing else mattered." I looked up at him, my eyes red, and smiled. "Alexander, from now on, I will only love you." The last time I saw Daniel was at a banquet I attended with Alexander. He called out to me, and I had no choice but to stop. The woman with him was not Lily. I had heard she was now dating some rich heir. He looked at me, his eyes full of a complex mixture of emotions. "Maya, how have you been?" I gave him a cool glance. "Without you and Lily around, I've been great." He frowned, looking at me now, shining like a brilliant pearl. He asked, still not giving up, "Is Alexander good to you?" I chuckled. "Daniel, for this, I really have to thank you for not marrying me. It's because of you that I was able to marry Alexander. I'm very happy, so please, don't bother me again in the future." With that, I walked over to Alexander, took his arm, and said softly, "Let's go home." He glanced back at Daniel, who was still staring at me, and said warmly, "All right."